family, our pets that have passed on. When we die, our everything that we've ever loved before are there. And they explained to me that heaven is not someplace way out there in the sky someplace. Heaven is right here next to you. It's not, I used to think heaven was men walking around in white robes and reading the Bible, and I didn't know what they did in heaven, but I was from a Catholic school, and I figured it was just way up there, and someday I'd see it, and I had no idea what heaven was like. But they explained to me it's right here. It's right here on earth, right around you, and that your angels want you to know that they're always with you. They have never left you, and that they never will. And I'm going to let Richard talk for a couple minutes, and then I'll come back and explain a little more what heaven is like. But when he shares his side of the story, I kind of understand why this is so unusual.
You know, there's thousands and thousands of people that have reports that, near-death experiences, and they saw their families and stuff. Well, ours is a little bit different because as a child, Jane always sleep-talked. And when we first got together, it was kind of funny to hear her rambling on in the middle of the night, carrying on these little conversations and stuff. Well, when I got her home from the hospital and she was under this heavy medication for a long time, she would start sleep talking. And lo and behold, my mom and my dad and my grandpa and all my family started speaking through her. And I grabbed a recorder and I started recording these conversations 6 years ago. And they have told me the most intricate details of my childhood, little stories that only they would know about my childhood. And I've recorded these things, and we put them on a website to share some of them. But I don't know why they chose us to go out and tell this story, but we're so honored to let you know that your loved ones are still there. And they called me the little tyke. And there's so many stories of their little tyke stories of when I was 4 years old or 6 years old. And some of them I remember very, very clearly. There's one where I took my little sister and I put her in a red wagon and I loaded up all these vegetables that we had grown, and I went to the supermarket and I knocked on the door and I said, Mister, would you buy my vegetables? And he did. And I remember that because it was such a big thing. And my mom and dad told me even the candies that we bought that day and how we brought them home. And there's hundreds of these stories. And over the years, they've guided me through life. We were in construction, and a lot of times I'd be worried, and they'd go out and they'd look and say, "Well, this man likes you." They can't predict things. They're not God. They're just like you and I. But they can go check on things for us. And Jane has a very specific gift that's very, very strong. But over the years, I've started to learn to listen to my dad. Now, he was my very, very best friend, and when he died when I was only 15 years old, I never spoke about him, and I never knew if he knew how much I loved him. But I've learned since then that I tell him every day that I love him. And I tell my mom I love her, and I tell my whole family, because I know that they can listen. And we have all these recordings of all these things that show that it is possible. And I've learned, when I first started out, I asked Jane, ask Dad this, ask Dad that, ask Mom this, ask them that. Well, since then, I've learned to communicate through my own ways. When I was a little tyke, I used to rub my face whenever I get excited. If I did something for my mom, I'd rub my face because I knew I'd done something good for my mom. Well, it happens again now. Maybe if we're going to have another meeting at another place, all of a sudden I start rubbing my face. I don't always know what it is, but I know something big has happened because they're telling me. And I can hear that voice if I'm driving a little bit fast and I'm going around a turn. I can hear my dad saying, "Slow down, son." That is as clear as can be. Now, Jane has more of a gift. Sometimes she'll say, well, she's awake. She'll say, "Dad said this, Dad said that." I only get a glimpse into her dreams maybe 5, 10 minutes a night. The longest has maybe been 40 minutes over the last 6 years. And we kept this to ourselves for years and years. Because when Jane sleep talks, when she was a small girl, she couldn't pronounce her R's. And so when she sleep talks, she can't pronounce an R. So when there's a word with an R in it, she stumbles on it. And for a long time, she didn't want me to play any of these recordings for anybody because she was embarrassed. And finally, we've been lightened up by God that we got to go out and share this with everybody, that it is possible, and your loved ones are all right here. And there's a whole network in heaven of when all your loved ones are here. I know it because we'll hear about it tonight. But there's a whole network. When something's going on, they let everyone know, and the whole room is full of your loved ones. And when I first started, I knew my dad was going to visit me because I was going to probably get a recording that night or the next night. And so I would just write down on a piece of paper a question that I wanted to ask him because I didn't know how often he came. I was really new to all this. So I'd write down the question, and then maybe that night or the next night, and I got to say I've had a lot of sleepless nights over the last 6 years waiting to hear from my parents because I loved them so much. He would answer the questions. But now I know that I can carry on a conversation with him. Usually when I'm driving in my truck, I'll have a long conversation with him or my mom. Or sometimes we were at the Des Moines River, and I said, Jane, I feel somebody here. And he goes, who do you feel? I said, I feel my grandpa.